What's going on today, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day. I know I am. We're doing a massive service on the old Yukon, so come with me. We're gonna do everything. We got oil, we got air filters, and we got fuel filters. So we're doing a complete service on this Yukon to make sure that everything's back up to tip-top shape. So without further ado, it's a little cold outside, so I'm gonna warm it up just a little bit, get it up onto some ramps, and make it easier for me. So let's get to getting that thing up and ready. So nothing special. I just got a couple ramps I'm going to drive up on. Going to get, 4 inches up off the ground to give me a little bit better clearance underneath it. But let's go ahead. Let's get this thing started up. And we will let this warm up for a second. It's been running for a second and it's not hot, but not cold, so we're gonna let that be where it's gonna be, call it a day. That way my fingers don't get cold. So we'll go ahead, pop the hood, and start draining this oil. Pop the hood, we'll go ahead underneath the driver's seat, right above the brake pedal, pull this, lifts it up. Now we'll come to the M in GMC, put our hand in. It's kind of like right about here on the M. Put our finger in, I like to do a fork, and then we'll push it towards the C, which would be the driver's side. Push it towards the C, and then we'll lift it up. Now when I'm doing this, there's a couple things I want to think about. I want to get as much of the oil out as I can, get all that old garbage stuff out, so I want it to drain for a while. So my first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is get a drain underneath this, open up the oil drain, and get that draining. That way, while I'm doing the draining, I can go ahead and work on the air filter or the fuel filter or something else to help let that drain as much as I can, and then I'll hop over, do the oil filter, and let that drain, get as much oil out of the system as I can, and just get as much junk out as you can. So I'm gonna go ahead, first things first, find a something to fill some oil in. It's probably a good thing to start with, and then we're gonna go ahead and start draining some oil. Now we've got our drain pan underneath, ready to go. We've got our 15 millimeter ready to go, and let's go underneath and start cracking this this pan open. So if we're looking at this, the front of the engines or front of the vehicle is up there. Back is obviously back towards this way. This is the passenger side tire that I'm looking at. So I'm sitting underneath the driver's seat. If we look up by this big bar right here, that's our sway bar. Right here is our oil drain for the engine. So we want to make sure we're not doing the one back here for this transmission pan, but right by the sway bar, you can see that bolt right there. That's the one we want to undo. Get our pan underneath it, and then grab our wrench, and we will start loosening this guy up and making sure that we can get it all undone. Probably really should go grab some gloves and put some gloves on while I do this. So, yeah, well, you're gonna send it. I like to put my hand above the bar, push up until I can feel the bolt like slipping, not slipping, but where it's out, it will hop on it will hop on the threads. Now we've got it dripping just slightly. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out of the way. Now put this down on our pan. Let that thing drain in there. Now I actually didn't fare too bad, luckily, and this is the extent of the oil I've got on me, but it's diesel oil, so it's a little more aggressive than regular gasoline oil. It's got more stuff in it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff off my hands now. Now when you're cleaning your hands, a lot of people are like, oh, grab brake cleaner, that will get it off the best. Actually, WD-40 works pretty good at getting most of that stuff off of your fingers. Not bad. Just don't forget to go wash your hands after. So I'm gonna go wash my hands and put some gloves on. Now, while the oil is draining, we definitely want to get the other fluids draining, which would be our diesel. So I want to get the diesel filter replaced. We're going to drain the diesel, and I definitely don't want that all over my hands. So right up there was our oil drain plug. There's our oil pan. Now we come back underneath the driver's side still till this guy. Now this guy is our fuel filter, and this has a T40 bolt in it. Now I don't know if mine will come out or not. I took it in for one service and they managed to strip this out, so I've had a whole bunch of trouble with it. But if you can't get that out, get it off with this. This is like a 30, I believe it's a 36 millimeter wrench or socket to get this off, and then you can just drain it that way. So I've got a pan right here. We get our pan underneath it, and then see if we can get this out with our T40 Torx bit, and see if we can start getting this guy to drain. I can't believe I actually got it. Now here in a second it should be coming out of that port. There we go. Now we've got our diesel coming out. We'll let that guy drain, so we don't get it all on our hands. Now that's just going to drain the filter housing, and that should be all the diesel that really comes out of it. Looks like our oil is pretty well done, so we'll switch that over to the filter. Our oil is slowed to a real slow drip. I'm going to let that catch up now. We're going to take our plug, which I think I need to get a new one because I see evidence of some oil is leaking from somewhere, and that's not very good. So we'll go ahead, clean that up. I'll get a new plug ordered up for the next service, and we'll just go ahead, plop that in. I'm not going to tighten it. I just want to thread it in, and that way I can get even more of that oil out in a second. So if we look at our drain plug, still looking at our passenger tire over here, if we go right towards the passenger tire, we'll see this blue filter right here. Now this is our engine filter. So remember, our drain plug, filter, they're right next to each other. Now one of the reasons we heat up the engine is to make the fluid more fluid and not as hard, more viscous, or less viscous, I guess, so it will flow better. Now the other thing is it will heat up this gasket and make this gasket a little bit easier to turn by hand, and hopefully not have to use wrenches on it. So if we go ahead and get going, hold on, let me see if I can get this. Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll get our drain pan back underneath it here. Give it, ooh, there, give it, so I've got it loosened. I'm gonna give it some quick turns, and then it's gonna drain on me. While that's draining, I'm just gonna let it drain for a second. Get all that oil out of there. I forgot this new pan can do both of them, so I've got taken the oil out, the oil drain plug. Now you can see this is how much oil is coming out of it after we put the bolt back in it. So there's still oil coming out of it, and then the oil filter is still leaking. So there's a considerable amount of oil that comes out after that plug's been in there. So it hangs up in there for a while. Now the fuel has kind of stopped dripping. I've gone ahead and ran this back in just finger tight. We'll grab our 36 millimeter socket. Now I'm not a fan that this one is a 12 point and this is a 6 point, because it's plastic. So this plastic really likes to round. Even crescent wrenches or box end wrenches, it likes to round off. So just be very careful, because it can be a nightmare to put this back on if it's all rounded off. We're going to go ahead, loosen this guy, get it taken off, and replace the filter that's behind this housing. After cracking the suction loose, I've gone ahead and popped this back open, drain what little bit's left in there, and there's not much diesel that actually gets wasted with this, but it's a necessary evil to get that nasty filter out of there. So finish, let that drain a little bit, plug it up, and then we will replace the filter. So there we go. Old filter and housing is out. You can see kind of how dirty that filter is and how dirty it gets just from normal wear and tear. Now this has still got, well, we'll have to check, but I think it's like 30 or 40% left on this filter. So definitely make it an interval change, don't go off the engine or what the thing says, because they run it way too long. So we'll go ahead, get the new filter, which is this guy right here. Here's our filter codes. Now these are GM because they don't really have any aftermarket stuff for these ones yet. But we'll go ahead, put a new filter in it, and with that new filter comes 2 O-rings. So you've got a big O-ring, that's pretty self-explanatory where it goes, right? But then there's this little O-ring, and where the heck does this little O-ring go? Now, it actually goes on the car side of the filter housing. So there is, if we go underneath again, there's a little stem that's hanging out, and you can see there's a little blue O-ring on this that we need to replace. So those are the 2 O-rings that replace with this kit. So we'll replace both O-rings. I'll grab a pick or a little screwdriver to get this off. You want to be careful because this is plastic and a plastic housing. It's another reason you be careful undoing it, because it's plastic on plastic, and there's not really a whole lot holding that guy up in there other than just plastic. So it's very, very important to be careful with this system. I don't know why it's not a metal system for a service item, but it is what it is. So replace that O-ring, place the other O-ring and the filter, and we'll pop this back on. So now it's important to figure out which way this filter goes in there. The top has a smaller O-ring while the bottom has a bigger O-ring. So we'll go ahead, pull this one out, hopefully. Pops out. Go ahead, drain that fuel in there. Put this on a napkin. Put this on my napkin so it'll soak that up. Now, controversial or not, there's still a little diesel in here. Is it worth saving? Is it not worth saving? I'm gonna go ahead, drop it in there, because I don't want that stuff in the car if it doesn't have to be. It's got gunk in it and everything. So go ahead, put our new one in. We'll go ahead, take our O-ring off, throw that one away, put a new O-ring. Ooh, that's not straight. There we go, now it's straight. Put a new O-ring on this bad boy. Make sure not to get any rocks or dirt or anything that's collected to the gloves. Plop that on. Just roll it down the threads. I'll take a little bit of the diesel that's kind of on the threads, make sure I work some diesel onto that, act like a lubricant so it doesn't stick super well when we go to put it actually in there, along with this internal one. A little bit of diesel from the gloves, from these threads, just to make sure that it's got some lube to put it on. Now we'll go ahead and grab a pick, put that little guy on, the interior one. Don't know if you guys really need to see that or not, but pull it off, put it on, and then we'll put this up, screw it in. So let's go ahead and do that. Look at the difference in the color quality of the 2 filters. There's actually an ant on this one too. See that little thing right there? It's a little bug. So it does actually work, it does catch things. Fuel filter complete. So now that the fuel system's done, we're gonna finish up the oil system. And with that, we've got our oil filter here, a PF 66 filter. Yay AC Delco. I don't know why they don't make a secondary system for this yet, but you have to buy all their stuff, and it's very, very important that you get light duty diesel motor oil, and this is 020. So it's very, very thin oil, which is kind of strange for this diesel, but it is what it is. So PF66 OW20 light duty diesel motors, very important to get those two. I'm ready for an aftermarket one for sure, but for right now, this comes in a kit, all 7 quarts that you need. So I'm gonna go ahead, pre-load this filter, because when I first start it, I don't want the engine to have to push through the filter media. I want it to already be soaked kind of through to get that preliminary oiling system kind of done. So just filling it up, it's gonna burble over here in a second, burble over to the overflow, make sure that we got a good amount of oil in it. Now, let's see if I can tilt this down and show you guys. So it's got oil in it, and it'll just slowly start seeping through all those filters. See how long it's gone down an inch there with us talking, but if you're talking about cranking, the engine's going, and that oil's not really getting to the other side of the filter. Now, we've spent a long time draining all that oil, so it's important to keep the oil as full as we can. So I'm gonna go ahead and top this off just a little bit more. Since it's a vertical system, I'm gonna put the filter on from the bottom to the top. And another controversial, I like to put oil on it just to make it seal better, make it leak better, I don't care, whatever you want to think. And then we'll go ahead, get this kind of oil down in the bottom, and go ahead, put this on the engine. I don't think I'm going to be able to take you guys with me now that I've kind of didn't think about it, but I'm going to go ahead, screw this on same way it came off, and clean it first with a rag, and then put this on. So I'm going to go do that. Now that I'm out of there, do not forget to tighten the bolt underneath for your drain plug. I've tightened the fuel, I've tightened the oil filter, I've tightened the drain plug, so everything that I've played with underneath there is all done. Now we've got everything pulled out of the car, we've got our oil system, and then our fuel system. Now don't pay attention to the sparkles in there if you can see them, that's from a previous project. But oil, diesel out, now time to put new diesel in. Now this has got 7 quarts, so we've got our 6 in 1, and then we'll go ahead and start pumping it in the top. Up at the top here, we've got our engine bay cover. Right in the middle of that cover is our fill. We'll go ahead, take our fill out, put it on this dirty engine apparently. Take our first bottle, and now I like to take my first bottle, since it's the one with all that I've used the most out of so far, use that one to pour my first little bit in, so I can hopefully not spill a bunch. Now while this one's draining, I'm gonna grab a knife and actually cut the top of this all the way around, so I can just pour my other oils in the top of this one and make life so much easier. Now that that's cut down, it makes the guesswork of the next one really easy to just put in, because I know it fits in the hole, and I can just drain it as fast as I want to. Now, while this one's draining, it's also got a nice holder for it. While that's draining, I'm going to get the next one out, pull the cap off that one, and then when I'm ready to do that, I'll put the cap from the new one on there and just keep changing them. Cap in hand. This one should be about done. Put the new cap on. Done. Next one. Probably a great time on your first or second one to check for leaks, see if anything's leaking, see if anything needs tightened before you put all your oil in there. Nothing appears to be leaking, so we'll go ahead, finish final one. We'll pull it out while it's dripping, put our cap on so it doesn't drip everywhere. Make sure to get the smallest amount of oil that's in here. Put it on the outside of our O-ring. Put this back on. Done. Now I really don't like the way that GM's been going with their air filters for a while. It seems like they choose to do bolts around everything except for, and not some like quick disconnect system. It's really, really annoying. So we're gonna grab our 8mm, luckily this time it's only 3 bolts. Get those 3 bolts pulled off, pull our old air filter out, put a new one in, put the 3 bolts back, and off we go. So I've saved the oily stuff for the beginning, so that way everything can kind of soak and get ready to be primed and good to go. And now we're gonna go ahead, let that have a second, and get the air filter done. Last maintenance item for the interval maintenance stuff that we have is get our air done. And this is the basic service of pretty much any vehicle. So last thing to do, air filter, let's get to it. So if we come over to driver's side, air box is right here on the driver's side. Now, if you can see that, down there, there is an 8mm bolt. There's another one on this corner, and then another one up on this corner. Those are the 3 that should allow this to slide away and be able to lift up and out of our way. So let's go ahead, get those done, see how many we drop down in the engine bay, and go from there. We've got our 3 bolts out. They're sitting right over here. Got our 3 bolts out. Now, in theory, I think we should be able to push this out. Maybe lift the back end up and push it out. There we go. And get this thing out of our way somehow. Not amazing, but it's enough. Be able to get this filter out of here. Thing's gross. Wow, look at that guy. Nasty. Okay, we'll put a new filter in it. It's really gross. We've got new air filter part, along with a new air filter that's nice and clean. Since we've been comparing everything so far, here's our old crusty one and our nice new white clean one. So out with the old, in with the new. Let's throw this thing away. Make sure that our, so the little nubbin right here goes to the driver's seat pretty much. Go ahead, clean some of this stuff out. Make sure we've got a good sealing surface all the way around. Plop in our new one. There we go, new filter's in. Now if we can get around our wires here. Pulled back in, and then the 3 bolts. This is where we're gonna drop them in the engine bay, because you have to kind of hand start them before you can really put them in there. So we're gonna do that, put these in. Well, now all our maintenance is done. Now we got to tell the computers in the car that, hey, we've done our maintenance. And the biggest thing before we do anything is we need to make sure we get that fuel system primed, because if we're getting air bubbles in the fuel system, then we're going to have problems. So with that, we're in the car, we have the keys, we're going to go ahead, not put our foot on the brake, and go ahead and turn this on. You should be able to hear the fuel pump turn on. Do that a couple times, cycle it, and that will get that fuel built up into the system. And again, we want that filter to soak for a second before we go ahead and start the vehicle. We don't want it to, all this maintenance to become an issue in the long run. So there you go. You can hear that whine of the pump working. And it sounds like I got a leak. Luckily I don't. So you can hear the fuel pump working, getting all that air in the system out. Now we'll go back up, turn it off, and do that again. So luckily, I don't see any leaks. It sounded like it was leaking, but it was just spraying into the filter. Give that a second, let that filter get some media in it or some diesel in it. I don't see any leaks up there. So let's go back in. So it seems like if you're pushing the button and then when the brake start, man, that's really loud. When it says the brake, press brake to start, if you push the brake and just tap the button, it will go that way. There we go. Done it 3 times, started the engine up. Let it idle for a second. While it's idling, let's go over to push the home button. There's our DEF. Our fuel filter will hold the center to reset our fuel filter life. Are you sure you want to reset it? Yes. Then that will reset, hopefully. Air filter life, 46%. That's how dirty it was at 46. So reset that. I don't know why fuel filter's not wanting to. I'm gonna do my trip 2. And our oil. Here we go. For some reason, the fuel filter's not loving resetting. Maybe I need to turn it off. There we go. Fuel filter life 100. We've got our air filter life already at 99. We've got our oil life at 100. And our trip 2 reset. So everything is back to where it needs to be. Now that we've got everything done, I'm gonna let this hang out for a minute or 2 probably of just idling. Make sure that we get that oil and that fuel and the air out of the system. So the oil will go up and get mixed into the system, get that back to normal range, get the fuel, get the air out of the fuel system, get that back to normal range before we start driving and actually putting a load on this thing. So I'm gonna go ahead, let this warm up, and that's it. The hardest part is trying to get the thing to start without starting. These push button things make it hard with the accessories. So I was having best luck with my foot on the brake and just tapping the on-off switch, not holding it, hold to start. But got it in. Just play with it till you get the fuel pump running. I have the door open to make it easier to hear the fuel pump. But that's it. You got this, guys. Easy enough. I'm gonna get out of here. You got it. You can do it. If you're doing it on your vehicle, let me know what vehicle you're doing it on down below. This crosses over to the trucks, the Silverados as well. This is pretty much most of the 3.0s. This, I mean, we've done it on the Yukon, so this is a 21 Yukon, but it's most of the 3.0 diesels, Duramaxes. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling. You enjoy your day. I'm gonna enjoy mine. Take it easy, everyone. Peace. That feels good to have all that done. One last thing before you drive away, it's worth a check underneath the car or back the car out and pay attention to what's underneath, because if you lose the oil or you lose the fuel, you're not going to make it very far and it's going to be pretty expensive. So double check your work. Peace. What's going on today, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day. I know I am, because we're doing a massive change. Man, my camera's getting really dirty.